Good morning, everyone. Boker Tov, Bruchim Haboim. It is Sunday morning, right after Shabbos Haggadah. Sunday morning, April 5th. Wonderful to get together to learn this morning. We're going to get started in just one more minute. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Okay, good morning, everyone. Just getting settled in. Coming to you live from the office. We're going to put up the special sign on the door for the kids. Let them know the shir is going on. Okay, I hope you're doing well. I hope you had a beautiful Shabbos. This morning's shir, as we sent out in the email, is sponsored by Rick and Sharon Cohn in memory of Rick's mother, whose yahrzeit is today. And we're also thinking of Refuah Shalema of all of the people in our community, the people who we know, and the people beyond who desperately need a Refuah Shalema during this terrible Makkah. We ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he should Yotzienu Mitzara L'Rvacha. So we'll start with one parak of Tehillim today, having in mind all those who need a Refuah and a Yeshua. Shir Lamalos Esoinail Heorim Me'ain Yavo Ezri Me'im Adonai Yosei Shemayim Va'aretz Al Yitain Lamot Raglecha Al Yonum Shomrecha Hinei Lo Yonum V'lo Yishon Shomer Yisrael Adonai Shomerecha Adonai Tzilcha Hayad Minecha Yom HaShemesh Lo Yakeka V'yareach V'aloyla Adonai Yishmorcha Mikol Ra Yishmor Es Nafshecha Adonai Yishmor Tzeitzcha V'oecha Me'ato V'yado Lamachinu Kol Beis Yisrael Hanasinu Vatzar V'ashiv Yahom Din Bein V'yom Bein V'yabasho Amokim Yirachem Elim Vitzim Vitzar L'Vrachim V'fiel L'Rev L'Shvig L'Gola Hashtabal Golos Man Korav V'no Mar Amen. Okay, Boker Tov. So if you have the sheets that we shared by email, there are 2 pages. If you don't have them in your email, you can find them at the Kolo posted it to its Facebook page, where you'll have the Mar Makomo sheet that I'm holding in my left hand here. And if you have neither of them, don't worry. We are in the final stretch, getting ready for Pesach. Haba Aleinu Latova, please God, this week, maybe in Yerushalayim or HaKodesh, hopefully with the Geula and a Yeshua right at hand. But if not, then we're going to be in our own homes. And so it's an opportunity this morning to focus on understanding the Haggadah. And we're going to tackle a particular part of the Haggadah. Each year we get together before Yontif and we share Haggadah highlights. Well, this year our Haggadah highlights are actually all within one section of the Haggadah, and you'll see which one and why presently. So let's look at the page that looks like this with a ton of text on it. Mining the core, the Haggadah for 5780. Haggadah highlights, we're going to try to get through a dozen of these in the short time that we have this morning. The Rambam tells us in Perek Zayin of Hilchos Chametz Umatzah Halacha Daled what we're supposed to do for our Haggadah. So he tells us that for the part of Magid that we tell the story, you have to start with the bad and finish with the good, as the Gemara says in Psachim, and he gives us both frames. First, you start and you tell the story. First, our forefathers in the days of Terach, and before him, Kofrim, they were heretics. People were doing all kinds of idol worship and they were completely misguided. And we conclude with the truthful religion. That's the Jewish religion. HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought us close to his worship, his service, our connection to him. Excuse me, we also avodim to Mitzrayim, to Paro. So we have maskal begenos, we start at the bad on the spiritual level, and then on the physical level, v'chol rosh hagabalanu, and all the evil that Paro did to us. U'mesayim b'nisim, the flows, and we finish with the miracles and the wonders sha'as shenasu lanu u'bechiroseinu, that was done to us and our chosenness. V'hu, and then here's the key line for us today: sheyidrosh, that you should darshan. You should learn me Aramed Oved Avi, from Aramed Oved Avi ad sheyigmar kol haparsha. This is taken from the Mishnah in Psachim, that part of our Haggadah is learning. Learning what? Learning a medrash. A medrash is a collection of teachings. There are lots of different kinds of midrashim. These midrashim are from the period of the Mishnah or from the Gemara. Where the Gemara, in addition to its halachic understanding of the psukim, also gives us a homiletic or exegetical perspective on the Dvar Hashem, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a Torah that has infinitely, deep layers of meaning and interpretation. So the way Chazal read the psukim is that they'll take a pasuk and they'll read in between the lines, and we'll give an example of what that looks like. So we're going to do that at the Haggadah. We're going to have a drasha, we're going to darshan, and we're going to darshan a section called Aramid Ovid Avi. But look what's interesting in the end of the Rambam. The last line of this Rambam says, "V'chol hamosifu marich bidrash parsha zu harezim meshubach." Fascinating. We say in the Haggadah, in our Seder, please God, Haba Aleinu L'Tova, this Leil Chamishi, which is the exact night, according to the Gemara, that we left Egypt, which was, according to the vast majority of opinions, on a Wednesday night. We left Egypt on Thursday, so the Seder this week is Wednesday night, exactly the way that it was in that year of Yetzias Mitzrayim. At our Seder on Wednesday night, we're going to say, anybody who tells the story for a long time. That's what it sounds like from the Haggadah, but that's not what the Rambam says. The Rambam says that v'chol hamarbe, anybody who is marbe, umarich, and lengthens bidrash parsha zu, not in the story, but in the drasha. So the Rambam is telling us that a key, central, paramount element of the Haggadah is learning. And it's not just learning the Divrei Torah, the Vortlach that we say over on the Haggadah. The Vortlach are beautiful, but the drush of understanding and analyzing them, according to the Rambam, on that we say Hamar B'Harezim Meshubach. So what are the drushas? So if you look at this page, I laid it out. The Torah gives us in the section of Mikra Bikurim, the farmer who brings the first fruits. If you have it in front of you, great. You see there are a series of psukim, which are in the giant and bold letters. And then what Chazal do is they break down these psukim by segment. So, for example, the first pasuk, Shene'emar, which is introduced by Tzei Ulaman Mabiki Shlovan HaArami, Aramid Ovid Elvi Vayered Mitzrayma, Vayogar Sham B'Mesei Vayhisham Lagoy Gadol Atzum Varav. That's pasuk number 1. You have it on your sheets in the big block. Then it's Vayered Mitzrayma in the underline, explanation. Anas al Piyadibor. B'Mesei Ma'at, that's a phrase, explanation. Vayhisham Lagoy, explanation. Varav, explanation. And then we go to the next pasuk. Vayareu Osanu HaMitzrim Vayanunu. Vayidnu Aleinu Avrakasha. So Vayareu Osanu HaMitzrim, explanation. Vayanunu, explanation. Vayidnu Aleinu Avodakasha. So this is how Chazal darshan psukim. Chazal explain, they amplify, they open up the psukim beyond what you see. So we're in the Haggadah. This is actually the entirety of this section. It goes from Tzeiulamad until the Eser Makos, and then there's a little bit of additional drush of the Makos that were at Yam Suf and how many Makos there were. But the way you get to Eser Makos in the Haggadah is through a drasha. It's through that last pasuk of Bizyad Chazaka 2, Vizra Netuya 2, Mora Gadol 2, that's 6, Uva Osos 2, Uva Movsim Shtaim 2, that's 10. So the actual link to the Eser Makos, the telling over of the frogs and the plagues and the whole story, that comes from a drasha. It's from the drasha of Arami Oved Avi. So we chose words, a section of the Dvar Hashem, of the Psukim, and we develop them. We use them as the springboard for understanding, filling in the picture. Awesome. So the question is, why did we pick this section of Mikra Bikurim? This appears in the beginning of Parshas Kisavo. Why do we pick a section from Parshas Bo or Parshas Bishalach? So there are many suggestions as to why we would do this. Perhaps it's because the person who's bringing the Bikurim never left Egypt, and yet he still identifies that story with that story, much like we do. Perhaps it's because we want to cultivate that feeling of gratitude. Dayenu, thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for everything. And that's the feeling that the Mikra Bikurim has. Perhaps it's because there is this fascinating pattern which continues to repeat itself, that in Mikra Bikurim, how many verses are there? There are 5. But how many do we say at the Haggadah? Only 4. We conclude Uva also Suvamovsim. Right after that is Vayivienu El HaMakom Hazeh. He brings us to this place. Wait a second. How many cups are there at the Seder? There are 5 cups. The Koshel Eliyahu, which the minig is not to drink, but there were some who did. So we have 5 cups, but we only drink 4. Interesting. Something that comes in 5, but we only have 4. Same thing happening. Again, the 4 cups, according to the Yerushalmi, are based off the 5 Lashonos of Geula. 5 Lashonos, and then there's one more, Vehevesi, same as Vayivienu. We just haven't gotten that far yet. So today we recognize, thank God, Vayivienu, we have the state of Israel. We're not at full Geula, but we're at least in that process. But being mindful of this pattern of the trajectory of Jewish history and the 4 versus the 5, the Eliyahu Hanavi bringing the full Geula, that coast, we're still waiting to drink that. That is not coincidental at all. So let's get started. You have the outline for you. That's what we're going to be using mostly. You can take notes. Don't worry about it. You can follow along even if you don't have the outline. So we start, Sei ulamad, ma bikesh Lavan ha'arami, lastus liYaakov Avinu. Look what Lavan wanted to do to our forefathers, to Jacob, and it's even worse than Paro, because Paro only wanted to kill the boys, but Lavan wanted to kill everyone. And of course, there's tons to say. We could say hours and hours on each of these pieces, but we're going to just share a sampling this morning, and I'm going to introduce you to various Haggadahs as we go along for some of these insights. So the origin, it tells us, is Vayered Mitzrayim, Arami Ovidavi Vayered Mitzrayim. The origins of the Gullus of Mitzrayim is with Lavan. Why is it with Lavan? What does it have to do with Lavan? So if you take a look, in this Haggadah, this is the Haggadah of Haggadahs Gedolei Tenuas HaMusar, the great Musar giants, those who gave us insight into ethical development, beginning with Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. So they quote here from Reb Chatzkel Levenstein. Reb Chatzkel was the mashgiach of the Mir Yeshiva. He traveled with the Mir Yeshiva from Europe through Shanghai into Israel, and he quotes here from the Vilna Gaon Yaakov belovan dugmas Yisrael b'Mitzrayim. That the relationship between the Gullus with Lavan and the Gullus with Egypt, that they are parallel, teaches us something. And what is that teaching? He teaches us that something that's very powerful. It's certainly true for this time. He says that Yaakov went to the house of Esav. Why? Because he was escaping from his brother. He was running away for his life. And the Jewish people in Egypt, they were in a state of vayimaru es chayeim. And yet, when Yaakov Avinu left Lavan's home, he was married. He had a family. He had a parnas, he had a livelihood. He comes back to Israel with everything. He says to Esav, Yeshli Kol. In the Jewish experience in Egypt, on the one hand, it was miserable, it was wretched, it was suffering. On the other hand, we went down as 70 people. We came out as an enormous nation with wealth, built a Mishkan, received the Torah. He says, Dafka b'Mitzrayim nivna klal Yisrael. Mitoch cheshchas Yisrael leBavel, beBavel leTalmud Bavli. In Bavel, which was a difficult exile, we had the Talmud Bavli. V'lachein nomar al zmanenu. What an incredibly important message for us today, says Reb Chatzkel, a man who survived the Holocaust and the escape of refugee status in Shanghai. What does he say? Av shelachura nir churban Yisrael. Even though it seems that there is a terrible churban, a destruction, a suffering, a challenge, aval ha'emasi, the truth is, she'achzav zeu binyan Yisrael, aval bevechina misteris. He says in his lifetime, he's seeing the building of the Jewish people. It's just hidden. When we can, you never know. Where is the place of true growth? Where is it going to happen? Says Reb Chatzkel, you never know. It might look bleak, but it might be an opportunity for growth. Isn't that a beautiful way to reflect on the time period that we're in? We are in a period of terrible choshech, and we're davening, we're begging the Ribbono Shel Olam to save us. But at the same time, even in this sorrow, we should realize that perhaps, potentially, a great Yeshua can be born from this. Aramid Ovidovi Vayer in Mitzrayim, who was our forefather? Our forefather was Yaakov. He was a shepherd. Our forefathers, they came down to Egypt. Yosef says, you know what you should tell Paro? We are Ro'ei Tzon. We are shepherds. And yet, Mikra Bikurim, this declaration is being said by a farmer. We go back, way, way back to the beginning of human history, and we had some tension between Hevel, who was a Ro'ei Tzon, Hevel, who was a shepherd, and Cain, who was an Oved Adama. So Rabbi Joseph E. Soloveitchik, has an essay here in Festival of Freedom, where he talks about how many have said that Jews prefer to be shepherds over city dwellers. And from one perspective, that's true. City dwellers are sometimes kayin, kone, attached to very into material possessions, acquiring and having something of substance in this world. And that is an unhealthy connection. Yet, Rav Soloveitchik points out that even though, yes, our forebears, they were Ro'ei Tzon, Yitzchak was only for a brief period Oved Adama, but primarily our forefathers and David HaMelech, they were shepherds. Yet there's also the ethic of an agricultural economy. Yes, there is the element of the pastoral economy, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Roi lo echser, you are our shepherd, just like we are shepherds. We're not so attached to the land. We develop sensitivity to our animals and not to our own possessions. But at the same time, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the ethic of an agricultural economy of the land, because there was also a psychological element there. The farmer, says the Rav, loves his homestead and is loyal to it. He doesn't surrender territory. He says, look at the story of Navos, who didn't want to give up his vineyard to the king. What does he care? The answer is people who own a home, they have a homestead, they are attached to it. We are attached to it. And that's important, because that teaches us to defend ourselves and stand up for ourselves. On the one hand, the shepherd is kind and hospitable, while the farmer is ruthless, insensitive, and at times cruel. His motto is, my homestead is my fortress. The Torah wants the Jew, says the Rav, to be as kind, as gentle as the legendary shepherd. On the other hand, the Torah is concerned with defense. The Jew is engaged in a permanent struggle, and in order to emerge victorious from his historical engagement, he must be tough and brave. So we, through our different exiles and our different experiences, have developed this orientation, that on the one hand, Aramid Ovidavi, we begin as shepherds with Lavan, and with our forefathers who go down to Egypt. But when we leave Egypt, we want to settle in the land because ultimately, Emir Hashem, that is where we're going to be as custodians of Eretz Yisrael and models for the entire world. So that's walking in the way of Hashem, according to the Rav, is being both a shepherd and a farmer. Beautiful. This idea of starting from love on one more ha'ara from this Haggadah. This Haggadah is called the Haggadah Shlema from Rav Menachem Mendel Kasher, which is a tremendous likut collection of many different svarim and developing an understanding of the origin of the Haggadah and where each section came from, because the Haggadah is a piece that came up over the years. He says, how could it be that Lavan is the beginning of the exile? So he quotes some svarim, a sefer who quotes from Ma'aribei Rav, who was a great Talmud Chacham who lived at the time of the Beis Yosef, 16th century. Today, we don't hear about him so much, but in those days, he was the man. He says something amazing. Lavan bikesh lakaras hakol. It's because of Lavan, Aramid Ovidovi, Vayered Mitzrayma. Because of Lavan, we ended up in Egypt. You know why? Because Lavan, he got involved in the Shidduch situation with Yaakov Avinu. Had it not been for Lavan, so Yaakov first would have married. That's right, Rachel. And who would have been born first? Ostensibly, Yosef. And so Yosef would have not just been Yaakov's Bechor in his heart, been his Bechor in reality. But because Lavan moved around the Shidduch and he presented Leah instead of Rachel, so Reuven was born first. So Reuven was technically Lo Mishpat HaBechor. He was technically the Bechor. And now we have a tension. Now we have Vayekanu Boachav. Now we have a situation where the brothers are jealous of each other on their level. That tension ends leading us down to Mitzrayim. The brothers sell Yosef down to Egypt because of the tension which was sowed by Lavan. So on some level, it's Lavan bikish lakaras hakol. Lavan was much worse. He wanted to destroy all his children, as is clear from the Psukim. But Lavan got involved in the family dynamic, and that is what ended us up in Egypt. First pasuk tells us Vayered Mitzrayma, and the first drasha here is Onos al pi hadibur. Onos al pi hadibur. We were coerced by the dibur. Here is another beautiful message that we could take home for our own Haggadahs, our own Siddharim, our own Pesach this year. It comes from this Haggadah. It's called the Haggadah Shal Pesach al pi Mate Moshe of Koznitz. The Heilige Koznitzer Magid, Rabbi Yisrael Hapstein, had a son whose name was Rav Moshe Hapstein, and he published a Haggadah. There's a likut of his Divrei Torah on the Haggadah, and he has a beautiful observation on this, which is something we can take solace in today. What does it mean, Onos al pi hadibur? Because when Yaakov Avinu went down to Egypt, the pasuk says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to him, Al tira Yaakov, don't be afraid. Anochi ered imcha Mitzrayma. I, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, the Shechina will go down with you to Egypt. So wait a second. It's very much like that story of Rus where it says, Ba'asher telchi elech. Yaakov Avinu is told, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm going down to Egypt. Are you coming? Don't worry, I'm going. So Kiviyachal, so to speak, HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes down to Egypt. So we say, Yaakov looks around, he says, of course I'm going to go. Onos al pi hadibur. He was, so to speak, forced to go because of the dibur, because Hashem said to him, I'm going into exile. And he takes it to another layer, which is that the Zohar HaKadosh explains that in Mitzrayim, the dibur was in Galus. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu had no speech, because in Egypt, there was no dibur. The dibur, the Shechina, was in Galus. That's why Yaakov was Onos. But that's why it's only Lagur. He says he was only there temporarily, because as soon as the Shechina is going to leave, as long as there's going to be a Yitzias Mitzrayim, because when the Shechina goes, he's going to go too. The dibur, Onos al pi hadibur, the Shechina, the expression of the word, in exile until HaKadosh Baruch Hu says it's time to go make a pesach, a mouth that speaks. Let's free the dibur, emancipate our aspect of dibur, the Shechina that speaks to us in this world. That's going back to Israel. So are we. We learn that the Ribono Shel Olam is with us in Golus. Right now, we're in Golus. We're in Gullus from work, we're in Gullus from family, and the worst, we're Gullus from shul, from the Beis HaKnesses, from the Mikdash Ma'at. But don't worry. Anochi Eireit Imcha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says he's going to come down with us right now, with me in my basement, in my special man cave here with my Svarim. The Ribbono Shel Olam is with us. Even though we can't be together in person for our learning, but the Ribbono Shel Olam is with us, and he's going to come with us in here, and then he's going to go out with us. We follow him, and that's what it means, Anas al Piyadibur. Wherever he says he's going, that's where we are going also. Anas al Piyadibur, from the Koznitzer Magid. Beautiful. We end up in Egypt. Vayitnu aleinu avoda kasha, vayareu osanu hamitzrim. Excuse me, before that. We become there, vayhisham lagoy gadol otzum varav. So what does that mean? We become this massive nation. So the drasha here is vayhisham lagoy. Oh, I didn't do one underline. Gadol otzum, and then varav. How are we going to be? We're going to be Kemoshe Ne'emar and B'sei Ma'at B'shivim Nefesh Yardu Avasechem Mitzrayim Va'ata now Samcha Hashem Elokecha K'kochvei Hashamayim Larov. We are now like stars. We started as 70, and then we became innumerable, enormous number. And that's the end of this pasuk. We went down to Egypt. We were starting as a small number, and then the drushes we became many. So this Haggadah, this is called Haggadah Shal Pesach Ezras Avosenu. Ezras Avosenu Haggadah mi Boston. It's the Likut of Divrei Torah from the Chasidus of the Bostoner Hasidim, which traces itself back to the Baal Shem HaKadosh. So they have a ha'ara here, a quote, a beautiful insight from the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem HaKadosh explains, and this is also something we could think about during this time, that we went down as 70, and then we came back as innumerable as the Koch ve'Hashamayim Larov. Says the Baal Shem HaKadosh, when Avram Avinu was told, look at the heavens, your children will be Kechoch ve'Hashamayim, they will be like the stars. Says the Baal Shem HaKadosh, to Kemosh HaKochavim nirin lamata ketanim ulamala b'Hashamayim him gedol. From our perspective in this world, we look up at stars and they look like specks of light. They look infinitesimally small. And yet, if you were to travel to space, you would see that these are enormously radiant, huge bodies. Kain b'nei Yisrael nirim ketanim lamata ba'olam hazeh. We look small in this world. Uba olam ha'elyon, in the upper world, him gedolim ma'od. We are very big. Why did we leave Egypt? To become Hashem's people. Being Hashem's people means that even though we are small in this earth, lo merubchem mikol ha'amim, the pasuk says we weren't chosen because we were many in terms of our size. We're not. We're a fragment, a tiny, tiny fraction of the billions of people who are on the face of this earth. But that's not what it's all about. It's about being a star. Being a star means having intrinsic spiritual worth. We left Egypt because we have a mission. And that mission of an ethical teaching, of bringing HaKadosh Baruch Hu into the world, of being the ambassadors of the Shekhinah, of bringing the Shekhinah out of hiding into our world, that is the greatest, most illuminating mission ever. And even though we might be a small number, we can do that in a huge way. This year, many of us may have smaller numbers of our Sidarim. Many of us used to get together with many people, many friends or family members. We're not going to have that this year. So our number is going to be smaller. But the Baal Shem HaKadosh is telling you that we can still be a star. The light that is emanating from our Seder can shine extraordinarily bright even if we have a small number of people. That's not going to hold us back. Just like the Jewish people, we shine when we go up there where it really matters. In the world of Nitzchias, in the eternal world, Eitzel HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chvodo ve'atzmo, when we look at the end of our lives at what really matters, when we look down, Habeit, that's when Avram Avinu is told, Usvara Kochavim, to go out, to go up to the heavens. From that perspective, it's totally different. What really matters is our ruchnius. What really matters is the light that we bring to the world, not how many people are at our Seder. It's the kind of Seder that we lead this year, and that the life that we lead every single day. So we went down Anas al Piyadibur, we became many people, and then Vayareu Osanu HaMitzrim. So this is the Olas Riyah. This is the collection of Haaras that Rav Kook has on the Siddur. It's also in the back, in the second section, It's also the Haggadah and his Ha'aras on the Yamim Tovim. So it's fascinating. There's a tiny, if you could even see how tiny it is, there's one little dot on the bottom of this page. I think all you see is my nose on this. This is Yerusha Me'avosenu, that when I'm on the screen, you never know what proportion's going on. So anyway, this tiny footnote, it says, Hayamazkir umadgish al ze es hadrasha sha'asu osanu roim. Rav Kook, when he would say over the Haggadah at his Seder table, and I'll mention when we're thinking about the Haggadah, just one personal special shout out, that my grandfather, Zecher Tzadik Levracha, my paternal grandfather, my father's father, and Matal Brand, Zecher Tzadik Levracha, Reb Mordechai Pinchas ben Reb Reuven HaKohen. So he was a religious Zionist chassid. He came from Galicia, where he had the full kashket with the pelach. And back in the day, his father, our family, they were also religious Zionists in Galicia. So when he came to America, so he and a few friends got to work on practicing farming in New Jersey. And then he forged his parents' signatures, and he got, as a teenager, he got a set of papers to go to what was at that time Palestine in 1934. And he went in 1934 to spend the Seder as a young single guy from America working on building the land of Israel at the Seder of Rav Kook. The year before Rav Kook passed away, he died in Gimel El in 1935. So it says here, and I never had the chance, my grandfather passed away just before my bar mitzvah, to ask him what that was like at Rav Kook's table. I can't even imagine. Mamish, literally at the shulchan of the Shechina. It says here in the footnote that when Rav Kook would say this pasuk, it says, Vayareu osanu ha-mitzrim. It doesn't say that the Mitzrim did bad to us. That would be Vayareu lanu ha-mitzrim. But Rav Kook, it says here in the footnote, Haya mazkir umadgish. He would mention and emphasize at his Seder in Yerushalayim Yer HaKodesh, the drasha sha'asu osanu ram. Take a look at the Medrash Haggadah. He says, you know what was so bad about being in Egypt? It wasn't that we worked. Obviously, that was terrible. It wasn't that we suffered. Obviously, that was terrible. But it's Vayareu osanu ha-mitzrim. The Mitzrim made us diminished. That because we were in their environment, because they affected us, they took away from our luster. They made us into people who sank to the lowest, most depraved levels. The Mem Tes Shari Tumah. Chazal tell us, had HaKadosh Baruch Hu not taken us out, Chas v'Shalom. By the way, even though it says, had we not been taken out, something would have happened, the Sfas Emes says, don't worry. Nothing would have happened. There's no such thing as Nun Shari Tumah. There's only Nun Shari Chachma. Netzach Yisrael lo yishaker. HaKadosh Baruch Hu would never, it's not, he had to take us out Kiviyachol because we couldn't have gone to the 50th level of Tumah. There's no such thing. The Jewish people always have that connection. But in this context, we ended up at the 50th level of Tumah. That's what's the problem, Rav Kook says. We are now in Galus, and we need to pinch ourselves sometimes. The Gemara says in the beginning of Avodah Zarah, Yisrael b'chutz la'aretz, the Jewish people outside of Israel, were ovdei Avodah Zarah b'tahara. We serve idols with purity, with tahara. Because we say, we have kosher food, we have minyanim, but you know what? At the same time, the Gemara says we're also ovdei Avodah Zarah. We have to be careful that the culture, which at times is hospitable, but in many respects is wholly antithetical to spiritual and meaningful values of connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of Tahara, is that pervasive? Is that pervading our lives? Is it influencing our homes? Is it getting near us? Is it having an effect on Osanu? So that's the challenge, Rav Kook says, Vayareu osanu ha-mitzrim. Because we were shakua in Mitzrayim, we were goy mikerav goy, we assimilated their values. And we ra, we sank to the 49th level of Tumah. Yet, Rav Kook writes elsewhere in the Haggadah, even though we say va'at erom ve'eria, we were naked, we had no mitzvos, but on the other hand, we still had not given up on our inner cherus. Just like we can't reach the 50th level of Tumah, there is an inner voice within us that says, I'm a Yid, I'm a Jew, I have meaning, I have a connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I will not sink into a depraved value system. I will not disconnect from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And no matter where we've gone, and in our generation, the Nisyonos Lo Aleinu, no matter what people have seen or what they have done, HaKadosh Baruch Hu and our inner connection to God can never be broken. That will always remain. Rav Kook says that within the Jew, it is always Poem, it is always beating. The Jewish heart is always beating no matter what happens, no matter where the person has gone. So even if we sang to the Mem Teshari Tuma of Vayareu Osanu HaMitzrim, but at the end of the day, Vanitzak, we scream, we can get out. The next pasuk, this is the third in the sequence of the psukim. Vanitzak el Hashem Elokei Avoseinu. We scream to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What does that mean? We screamed to him. We davened. That's what we're doing now. So in this beautiful Haggadah, this new Haggadah in recent years from Rav Asher Weiss, which is hard to get now, but I think you can still get the English version. Rav Asher Weiss quotes a very interesting observation on this, because when we get to the Yam Suf, Moshe Rabbeinu starts to daven, and the Medrash says, "What are you doing? Why are you davening? The Jews are suffering. Ma titzaki lai, daber el bnei Yisrael v'yiso." And similarly, when Moshe Rabbeinu was davening for his sister Miriam when she was affected by tsaras, it says, "Kel no rafan Allah." The Medrash says in the Mechilta, there's a time to daven long, and then there's a time to daven short. Now's a good time to daven short. So how do we know vanitzak? How do we know when to daven? And this vanitzak, by the way, the Mefarshim struggle whether it might be a cry even just of pain, just a guttural cry that's not even a word-filled tefillah. It's just a longing for God. That too is a tefillah. The feeling of we need you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even if we can't articulate it. But what kind of tefillah? How do we know? So he says an amazing idea. He quotes from the Heilige Tzanzer Rebbe, who apparently used to quote often from a Pinchas of Koretz. The Koretz used to say that when a person has a tzara gedola lo yispalel rak yiftach ba'Hashem, koach habitachon is mashlim the koach of tefillah. What does that mean? So Rav Asher Weiss explains that the koach of tefillah, obviously HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't change his mind, but one of the dimensions of tefillah is that we open up. Imagine opening the valve on a submarine and letting the water in. We open up when we daven. We open up to ourselves, to having the shefa, the bracha of Hashem, come in. But there's another channel of connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that is through bitachon. So when the Jewish people stood at the Yam Suf, what did Hashem say to them? Don't daven now, exercise bitachon. Walk into the water. What he's telling us is that these are two paths and that they oscillate with each other. There's a footnote in the biography of the Chazon Ish that talks about different people and different stages in our lives have different levels of bitachon. So when we have stronger bitachon, then we daven less because we're working on that avoda of leaning in to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But when we feel like our bitachon is lagging a little bit, and that's not going to be the avoda that we're tapping into at that time, so then we need to be marach and tefillah. So at the time when they were enslaved, so vanitzak, they screamed out, they davened. Could be at that point their bitachon was lower. It only when they got to the Yam Suf, then vayamidu b'Hashem of Moshe Avdo. But the idea is that there's a balance here, and that we need to be working on both. We need to be working on our davening to open ourselves up to the shefa, but we also need to be leaning in to having bitachon that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in charge and taking care of everything. Bitachon doesn't mean not davening, and davening doesn't mean not having bitachon. We need both, and we need to be constantly calibrating them, which I thought was such a beautiful and fascinating insight and important for our time. And this vanitzak, I forget what sefer it is. When I was putting things away, I lost the sefer, so I didn't put it in the chart, but I can't help myself. I have to share it. Such an important insight. Vanitzak, when did we cry? The pasuk says, Vanitzak el Hashem Elokei Avoseinu. You see in the underline, Kamoshen Emar, Vayhi bayamim harabim ahem vayamas melech Mitzrayim. When did we start to scream out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? When the Melech Mitzrayim, when the king of Egypt died. So I saw in one of the Sfarim a beautiful, beautiful Maisa. What does it mean that we started to cry out to Hashem when the king of Egypt died and we had a break? Vayanchu min ha'avoda. Why is that when we cried out to God? A man once came to a Rebbe, and I apologize, I don't have the sefer in front of me, so I don't remember which. It was in a pile and it got lost. Maybe it'll turn up. A chassid came to the Rebbe. A woman comes to the Rebbe, and she says, Rebbe, I'm begging you, I have no children. Could you please give me a bracha for children? I've done everything. I've gone to every doctor, and it hasn't worked. And the Rebbe says to her, I know you for a long time. I know you don't have children. I would love to give you a bracha. But the only way that I can give you a bracha is that if you donate 10,000 rubles to tzedakah. That's the only way I can help you. The woman looks at the Rebbe and she says, Rebbe, I don't even have 5 rubles to my name. You're telling me that I need 10,000 rubles for tzedakah? That's how you're going to help me? The Rebbe says, I'm sorry. The only way that I can help you is 10,000 rubles to tzedakah. The woman looks at the Rebbe and she walks back out of the room. She closes the door and she looks up in God and she says, Ribbona Shalom. The Rebbe doesn't want to help me. The doctors can't help me. You're the only one who can help me. Please help me. And at that moment, the Rebbe opens the door and he says, Emir Hashem, this year, you'll have children. And she got it. And she left. And that year, she had a child. That's the Maisa. Because sometimes the Rebbe wanted her to understand that it's not about relying on vanitzak to doctors. We have to do our shtadlos. It's not looking to Rebbes for brachas. They're not the purveyors ultimately. Ultimately, it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so the pshat in this, I saw in this sefer, beautiful, beautiful pshat. Vayamas Melech Mitzrayim. The king of Egypt dies. So now the Jews figures, it's going to be much better. Now we're not going to have to work so hard. So they had pinned their hopes on the death of the king. Then the king dies. Vayonchu, they krechts. And what happens? Nothing gets better. They're still stuck. And then they realize, vanitzak, vayizaku. And then vatal shavasim el ha'elokim min ha'avoda. Their words, their cry goes out to the Ribbona Shalom from their work. Why? Because only then did they really pin their hopes on God. Like the Rebbe said, ultimately you can't pin your hopes on the doctors, because as we know now, doctors only know something. We thought 3 months ago we know everything, but we realize now we don't know everything. We don't control everything. Even Rebbes, the Rebbe said, we think we're going to go for a bracha. The Rebbe is going to be the solution. The Rebbe is only a conduit. The Rebbe wants this woman to know. He wants all of us to know. Ultimately, don't pin your hopes on anyone except for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's why Vatal Shavasim Elo Elokim in Avoda. That's why our cries went up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And what did he hear? Vayishma Hashem es kolenu vayaris anyenu ves amalenu elo habanim. So this is the Haggadah of the Lubavitcher Rebbe of Rav Menachem Mendel Schneerson Zecher Tzadik Livracha. So he has a fascinating ha'ara, and this ha'ara is so powerful, especially in light of the fact that the Rebbe himself had no children. An amazing idea. Now, I can't say that I get this 100%, and I hope I'm representing it correctly, because this Haggadah is in Yiddish, and my Yiddish is not so good. But the Rebbe asks a very simple question. He says, wait a second. The pasuk says, Vayar es anyenu, he saw our suffering, ves amalenu. He saw our amal, our hard work. What's that? Says the Medrash, Elu habanim. This is the banim. As it says in the pasuk, Kol habein hayilod hayor tashlichuhu. You should throw every child, every firstborn boy, every boy that's born, not just firstborn, into the river, and every girl you should let live. So the Rebbe asks a simple question. This verse, how does it prove the point? It says, Amalenu, our work, that's children. How do you know that? Shenemar? They threw all the children, the baby boys, into the river. How does that prove that Bonim is Amalenu? Das lernt uns. So you know what we learn? Says the Raya. He says, the Raya is ein allgemein as es gewein atzara wegen Bonim, but bringt nit kin Raya. We realize that the tzara is about children, but we don't have any Rayas. And the answer is that children, as our amal, our hard work, the kinder, as he refers to them, doesn't need a raya. Is mashma, is das is a dvar poshet, und wie bald es das is a dvar poshet, darf man auf dem nit haben kin lieben von a pasuk. You know what our ultimate labor is? The most important thing to us? our goal, that which we really work for, our amal, is our children. And the Rebbe says that doesn't need a proof. That's obvious. Of course, our most important labor is our children. Es amalenu el abonim. Obvious. Obvious, says the Rebbe. And then he goes on to point out that even the children who are not our physical children, our students, our adopted children, they also are amalenu. So what is the pasuk? He says that is exactly what Paro was trying to get rid of. You know how you see that that was the most important thing to the Jewish people then and the Jewish people today? It's from the fact that the Jewish people were being attacked at the Nakuda of their children. Because they were throwing the boys in the river, that shows, says the Rebbe, it must be that's the main thing. He says that is the Ikar, the first, the erste mitzvah in der Torah is Puravu. The first mitzvah in the Torah is Puravu, and that's not just physically populating the world, but it's also spiritually populating the world, being machanech our children. And if we don't have physical children, it means contributing to mostos, whether it's schools or children that are nourished in shuls or through the kola programs, tons of things that we can do practically to remind ourselves to nourish amalenu elo habanim. What a beautiful idea. Then we think about what's hard, and it is hard. Raising children is hard. We have, Baruch Hashem, 5 children, thank God, in our home. It's trying to be a good parent is not an easy thing. Ve'es amalenu elo habanim. But it doesn't need a raya that is the main focus, the main work in our life. Vatal shavasam min ha'avoda comes up from the avoda. What does it mean that we have avoda? So this is the Haggadah. We are down to our last 3 ha'aras. We're hopefully going to finish right on time. This is the Haggadah of the Avnei Nezer, the Heilige Sachachav Rebbe, Rabbi Avram Bornstein. And in the footnote of the Haggadah, they quote a story from a sefer called the Shem and Hatov, that when the Avnei Nezer went to the Levaya of the Ger Rebbe, he spoke about the Ger Rebbe and this idea that we have avoda. Does each one of us have our own avoda? What is our mission? What is our goal? What is the work that we're doing in this world? What is my job? And that doesn't mean what is my vocation? What do I do for a sustenance in this earthly, existence? What's my avoda in my avodas Hashem? We're crying out, Hamaledically say the Chassidim, min ha'avoda. We reached out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and said, what is our avoda this yantif? What is our avoda to you when we are sequestered, when we are quarantined, when we're isolated? What's our avoda? That's the question we need to be asking ourselves. When we ask questions at the Seder, one of the questions is, ma avoda? What is our avodas Hashem? So they quote here in the footnote that when the Sachachavar came to Gur to be maspid, to eulogize the passing of the Sfas Emes, the Heilige Ger Rebbe, and he says that the Ger Rebbe was so holy, so unbelievable, that he finished his entire avodas Hashem in this world. He finished his avoda. The mission that he was brought here for was finished. However, he says this is the amazing thing, that there are tzaddikim who not only finish their work, their avoda, their personal service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they find ways to reinvent themselves. He quotes this from the Heilige Kozhnitzer Magid, that the Kozhnitzer Magid used to say that there were tzaddikim who finished their mashlam, their work, umagias manam lehistalik, and it's time for them to go back to the Ribono Shalom. But you know what they do? They reinvent themselves. They find eitzos of new avodas. They become reinvented. So the question is always, what's our avoda at this stage of my life? Maybe I finished my avoda of my 20s. I need to come up with a new avoda, a new way of serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu in my 30s. Maybe I'm in my 70s, and now I've looked back on an avoda, on a life that I finished, on an avoda that is completed, but it's not time to go back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You know why? Because I could create a new avoda. What's my next? And we look at people that have this capacity to be the nar, even though they are a zaken, right? In the Chazal parlance, a zaken it means zeh shekana chachma, but it doesn't mean somebody who's old in years. Zaken is usually associated with somebody who is fixed. They're not growing. They're not innovating. But we know people who are anar. They are youthful, childlike, as Rav Soloveitchik would say about his grandfather, Rav Chaim Soloveitchik. Rav Chaim Soloveitchik was a grandfather, but he was also a child. He was a nar. So finding ways to be like a nar, to come up with, what's my next avoda? Some of us are getting older, whether we're getting into our 50s or getting into our 80s. And the question becomes, did I finish my avoda? Maybe I did. Maybe I finished my avoda for that last tekufa. But what's my next avoda? What's my new avodas Hashem? Vanitzach, we cry out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu minhu avoda, from our work. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu saves us. Vayotzienu Hashem Mitzrayim, b'yad chazaka v'zro netuya. But He took us out. Vayotzienu Hashem Mitzrayim. God took us out. Lo al yedei malach, v'lo al yedei shliach ela HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chvodo v'atzmo. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu Himself. When we have an avoda, when we are being saved, what we remember at the Seder is the fact that we have a direct connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not through a malach. Especially when we're going through a difficult time, a person who, lo aleinu, has fallen into different bad places that even a malach can't go there because they would get dirty and filthy and trapped. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu can come with us everywhere, no matter how far we've fallen, no matter how long we've been lost. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will always be there. We have a direct connection to Him. Listen to this most unbelievable story. This is from the Haggadah of Rabbi Dr. Abraham J. Twersky. So Rabbi Twersky tells the following, Dr. Twersky tells the following most unbelievable story. He says he davened at the kotel once, and he's standing there, and nearby walks over a blind man. And he says, a blind man approached the wall, and after bestowing a gentle kiss on the sacred stones, he ran his fingers over the stones, feeling centuries of Jewish history in the ridges and troughs of the massive boulders. He began a conversation with God, relating many personal things. He then paused a few moments and said, "Oh, I'm sorry. That I already told you yesterday," and continued his conversation. I was electrified, says Dr. Twersky, by the character of this man's prayer. It appeared to me much different than the regular routine rituals of prayer which we so often practice. This was an intimate one-to-one conversation between him and God. Ani v'lo malach. HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes to our Seder. So where is God at the Seder? Are we talking to Him? Are we davening to Him? Are we having that intimate one-on-one conversation with Him, not through a malach, not through a siddur, not through anything else? And we get the Eser Makos, and they conclude with Rabbi Yehuda, who would give them Rayanosim Bem Simonim. There are multiple svarim that talk about this Simonim. This is one sefer who summarizes some Rabbi Mon's Haggadah, the Shiras Miriam. Then there is also a summary here in the Chernobyl Haggadah and the Ma'orei Naim in the footnote, and the Abarbanel. They all mention the same ha'aros of the series of the Ditzach Hadash Ba'achav. Yes, Rabbi Yehuda was the Rosh Medabrim. He was always insisting on using mnemonics and great ways to educate people. He was a great pedagogue, but there are also other layers of meaning here. The first one is that these three sequences had a series. The first one had a warning. The second one had a warning. The third one had no warning. That's one way of looking at this. Another one is that the first ones were done by Aaron, the second one was done by Moshe, the third one was done primarily by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shechin, Moshe, he threw it up and then it came down. But the other way to think about this, and that's what these Haggadahs all mention, is that Paro was not just being punished, he was being taught. And even if Paro was being punished, we are being taught. We are supposed to learn something through the 10 Makos. The 10 Makos pattern the Aseres Hadibros, and they pattern the three stages, the 10 utterances of the Asar Ma'amaros, the first statements. So these three stages are stages of education for us about what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to understand. Paro says, who is God? I don't know anything about God. Where is He? What is He? So we have to teach Paro, and we have to learn for ourselves. We have to tell our children. We have to learn something. It's not just a punishment. It's an Emunah textbook, or it's an Emunah experiential education. That the first three teach us that there is a God. Ki ani Hashem, there is a God. He flip-flops on nature. Ki ani Hashem, there is a God. The second is ani Hashem bekerev haaretz. God is involved. He's aware. It's not some kind of mechanistic clockwork type of thing. Ani Hashem bekerev haaretz. And the third one is it's mamchish, the concept of nevuah, and ultimately bechiras klal Yisrael. That the Heflesi HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't just get involved. He gets involved and he shares that message with Moshe Rabbeinu, with his Nevi'im, and chooses the Jewish people. These are the lessons of Emunah, that we have a God who created the world, who runs the world, who has a connection to us, who listens to us, and who chose us. So to summarize the quick ha'aras that we had today, we started with the idea of choosing Mikra Bikurim as our text for the drushes, because it teaches us primarily about gratitude. It's the 4 and the 5. Reb Chatzkel Levenstein reminds us that even in the most challenging times, even as a Holocaust survivor, as a refugee, he knew that through Churban can also come Binyan. The Roe and the Oved Adama, the agrarian life, which is it's a synthesis of being the kind and gentle shepherd, but also the confident and strong landowner. Starting with Lavan in the name of the Ma'aribe Rav from Kasher of understanding, sowing the seeds of machlokas with Lavan, something that we can fix, try to mend these machlokas in. Onas al Piyadibur, the Koznitzer's son, the Koznitzer Magid, telling us that we went down to Shechina to Mitzrayim because the Shechina went down, and we're going to always be together with the Shechina, and he's going to be always together with us. We're going to become Kachoch ve'Hashamayim, like stars of the sky. Baal Shem Tov said, because even if down here we're a small number, but when you go up to the heavens, the spiritual world where it really matters, we are very important. Vayareu Osanu, says Rav Kook, the real problem in Egypt was that we sank to the level of the Egyptians, but we never lost that spark, that inner pa'amon, which can bring us back. Vanitzak, said Rav Asher Weiss, do we daven a long or a short prayer? It depends on our level of bitachon, and working on both tefillah and bitachon at the same time in a crisis. Ve'asam Aleinu, said the Lubavitch Rebbe, Elo habonim, and it's obvious. The main focus, the work that we're doing, is to make sure that we can collectively raise Jewish children. Men ha'avoda, we cried out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu from our work. What's the work? Said the Heilige Avnei Nezer. The work is our avodas Hashem. Anivelo malach, having that direct connection, that personal relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then the 10 makos teaching us the 10 lessons, the 10 layers, the 10 spheros through the sections of the Tzach Hadash Ba'achav. I am God, meaning your God. I am God who's involved in the world. I'm sending you a message through the Nevuah. I'm giving you a message that you are going to bring to the world, to being chosen, B'ni B'chori Yisrael. I wish all of us a Chag Kosher V'Sameach, a brachas of refuahs, Yeshua's, Geula. Everybody should be well. We will be sending out, Amir Hashem, lots of resources from the Kolo, please God, over the coming week. Thank you to Rick and Sharon Cohen for sponsoring. Rick, your mom's neshama should have an aliyah. We should all be together in Yerushalayim HaKodesh for the Pesach Mikdash, for the Zvachim and the Pesachim, eating together. Enjoy Yantif. I'm sorry I can't see you in person, but I feel connected to all of you, and best wishes for a Chag Kosher V'Sameach.